Hey everyone, and welcome to Comedians on Technology, People and Drugs. I'm your host, as always, Sam Joseph, and today we're very lucky to have comedian Chris Natsuume on the podcast. Hey Chris, it's really great to have you with us. Thanks so much for sharing your time.
Oh, no problem. I'm excited to be here.
Brilliant. Now you're a very funny person, and I'm sure that our listeners are on the edge of their seats to understand your comedy origin story. Was it that, oh my God, that you found a sort of a comedy wingsuit and you helped Captain America defeat, Hydra Shield, and that's how the comedy career started? How did it all kick off?
Actually, I started late. I'm old and I used to walk around. I used to take these giant long walks around Japan, 40, 50 kilometer walks.
Oh
And I
yeah.
would listen to comedians while I did it. And it was very much, I was listening to Doug Stanhope and I was
Mm,
listening to Bill Burr and all these other great comedians.
mm.
And it's like when you walk around and you're listening to Led Zeppelin and you're like, you imagine in your head how cool it would be to
Right,
be
right.
John Bonham on the drums. And you think to yourself, like, well, I could never do that. But you
Hmm.
still imagine it in your head. You're like,
Sure,
oh,
sure.
yeah, look at me. I'd be jamming out on the drums. And I went to the Tokyo Comedy Bar, actually,
Hmm.
and I watched one of the founders, a guy named BJ,
Yes.
do this really amazing show where he did an entire show in English. And then afterwards, he did the whole show again, exactly the same show, but he did it in Japanese.
Right.
And it was a fascinating thing. And afterwards, I just went to talk to him about it.
Mm.
And he was like, "Well, you should come to one of my classes and learn how to do comedy."
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I did it because I thought it would be kind of a fun father-son thing because my son was interested.
Oh
And
yeah.
so my son and I showed up for this class, and my son had literally zero interest in it after the first class.
Right.
And I had only shown up, because I thought it was interesting. I thought it would be fun to see how comedy was done, but
Right.
I was still in that mental state of I could never possibly do this.
Really. Right.
But I got a couple laughs in the silly little class, and BJ said you should go to an open mic.
Mm, mm,
You can't
mm.
just come to a class. You have to go to an open mic. And I went to one, and I did okay. And then they were like, "Well, you don't really know what you're doing until you've gone to at least five of them." So I
Right.
promised
Right.
myself I would do five of them.
Mm.
And after five of them, I was like, "Wow, this is super fun. I'll do 10 more." And
Mm.
I started a little spreadsheet because I'm a giant nerd.
Uh-huh.
And every single time I got on stage, here's the material that I did, and here's how it went, and here's how many people there were in the audience.
Right.
And I've kept the silly little spreadsheet going. Actually, just last week was my 250th time
Mm,
on
mm,
stage.
mm, mm.
And I had no intention of doing this, but I still take the long walks, right? And
Right.
so
Right.
now, instead of taking the long walks and dreaming of what it would be like to be John Bonham on the drums, it's taking these long walks and listening to just yesterday I was listening to Kyle Kinane,
Oh yeah.
and I was like, oh wow, what a great comedian. But instead of it being something that I could never do, it was
Hmm.
me listening to him and saying like, oh, he's doing this thing or he's doing that.
Hmm.
Oh, I wish I could do more of what that.
Hmm.
Oh, look at how he's putting that joke together. And I don't want to say it's fucked up comedy for me. um, you know,
Right.
it's it's like everything else. You change. It's
Yes.
gone from being just enjoying comedy to being, oh, now I'm going to take this thing apart and I'm going to
Right.
try to figure out why it's funny. But I'm sorry, none of that was funny. That was all very.
Well, no, there's no requirement to be funny on this podcast at all. If it happens
Thank God.
if it happens spontaneously, that's great. But no, this is what I would call podcast gold. Yeah, yeah, absolutely fantastic. I'm fascinated, and I have various questions and connecting little bits and pieces. I mean, I'm also an older comic. Your son, when you went to do that class together with him, how old was he at the time?
Let's see, he would have been 17 at the time. Yeah,
Right, right.
I have two kids. I have a daughter who's 2 years older than him, and my
Yes.
son is 17. And he was also interested in comedy, but I think he just couldn't. It didn't. It either clicks or it doesn't. When
Sure.
you get your first time up on stage, and I think if you get up on stage and you're like, "Wow, this was fun. I want to do this
Mm,
again," you do it
mm,
again.
mm.
And if you don't, you never do it again. And I
Right.
I tried to get him to come to, he never even went to an open mic, and I
Yes.
tried to get him to do an open mic, and he was just like very resistant to it. And
Mm.
I'm not gonna force a dude to do comedy,
No, sure.
but. Uh, but no, for me, I still spend a lot of time kind of being surprised that people want to hear me talk. It's
Okay.
always very weird for me to get up on stage, and I don't know
Mm.
if you get this, but there's this weirdness about like I also play music. I play drums,
Oh yeah.
and I'm not good at it. But
Hmm.
when you're on stage with a band, like if I stop playing the drums,
Yes.
the song doesn't just immediately stop, right? The
No.
rest of the band
No.
is kind of dragging you along, and
Hmm.
there's a feeling like, if I mess this up, maybe the guitar player will cover it or whatever. But like when you're a stand-up comedian on stage, like it or not, is 100% you.
Yes.
And at any given moment, you could just like, I don't know, pull your dick out or scream or something, and it would like the audience would be like, "What the hell is happening?" Because it's 100% about you,
Yes.
and it's a very vulnerable state, and I don't think
Hmm.
people get that. Like, and it's like a waveform. It's
Mm.
you'll be doing good, and people will be laughing, and you'll be like,
Yes.
"Fuck, this is going great. Oh, this is amazing." And then you'll not land that one joke really bad,
Hmm.
and there's no like, okay, the guitarist is going to pick this up and
Right.
fix
Right.
this right
Right.
now.
Right.
That it's just you on stage eating shit, and there's no one there to fix it but you, and you've got another 5 minutes on stage.
Right.
And I think that's a level of stress that not everybody is up for. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Um,
Absolutely, absolutely. I think, yeah, I think for many people, doing stand up, like even the idea of doing it is just anathema. They're like, and whether they understand it as clearly as you've just articulated it or not, I think, varies from person to person. But lots of people kind of like, I would never do that. But partly because they are so afraid of being exposed in that sort
yeah,
of way, right? Yeah, it's a very strange activity, and I relate strongly to what you're saying about, it either gets you or it doesn't. I have similar age children who are in their, late teens, and
mm,
yeah, they're very not into, yeah, none of them ever seen me do stand up. They're all sort of quite painfully embarrassed by
really.
it well, I know they think it's, yeah, it's a strange. They're not. I think they all feel that they're sort of almost like they say that they're now quite envious of me having this, passion in my life. They can
Mm.
see how passionate I am about it, and like how I do it a lot, and so on. But yeah, no. Over the years I've done at different times. I've been able to. We used to do karate classes together with my children. I think being able to do a class together with your children and both be learning together is just fantastic. But yeah, I did a class just by myself. No children involved. Not planning for that to lead to anything, but having done the first successful gig, I was then completely hooked. And I think it sounds like in a way that you were similar. Although it's interesting what you say that, you did one and did 5 to 10. It reminds me of Gandalf introducing the dwarves to Bjorn
Yeah,
in the
it was
Hobbit.
very
It
much
was a
like
kind
that.
of, yeah, like, it is interesting. Like, for me, as soon as I did the first one, I'm like, right, that's it. I'm going to do as many of these as I possibly can. It sounds like for you, uh, you're now completely hooked, but that, you were kind of, let's shall we say, stand up curious in that first stage. Like if you hadn't had that encouragement from BJ and the sort of, them sort of like come hither into the open mic, you might not have jumped in quite with both feet in quite the same way.
Well, the phrase people throw around is imposter syndrome, which I hate. I hate that word because the
Right.
problem with imposter syndrome is by saying you have imposter syndrome, just logically, that means that you are actually saying you're good at it, right? Because you couldn't have imposter
Mm,
syndrome unless you weren't already good at it. But
right.
the
Right.
problem is, I genuinely do wonder sometimes why people want to listen to me. And I
Mm,
still have and I'm sure every comedian has this, but that incredible, like, I can't I'm not as good as these other people.
mm,
Tokyo Comedy Bar has amazing good comedians, and I
mm,
go up there, 3, 4 times a week, and I watch these amazing
mm,
comedians, and I'm just like, I can't follow that. I can't go up on stage after that, and I
right.
do, and people say, oh, you're doing fine, it's
Yes.
good, but inside you're like, yeah, but I'm not as funny as UDA is. I'm not as funny as BJ is,
Mm,
and it's and you constantly wonder like one day you're going to show up at the comedy club and there's
right.
just going to be a guy at the door who's like, all right, joke's over, dude, like
Right.
we've let this go on as long as we will, but
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
you're not really that funny, we're not letting you up on stage. And it's this constant doubt that you have in your head
Yes.
of and it's very personal. That's the thing about
Sure.
comedy. Again,
Sure.
like if I were to get up and play a song, I go out and play I don't know, an Aerosmith song
Right.
at a club.
Mm.
I could say, well, they didn't like the song,
Right.
or they don't like Aerosmith, or
Yes.
they're not into rock and roll music. I don't,
Mm,
it's
mm,
not
mm.
personal to me. I mean, maybe they hated my drum playing, but there's all this other shit that they could have
Yeah.
hated too.
Sure.
But you get up alone on stage as a comedian with your ideas, right? The rule
Yes.
number one of comedy, you're not allowed to do anyone else's comedy. This is
Right.
all you,
Mm-hmm.
your ideas, you alone on stage. It's 100% you. And if they
Mm-hmm.
don't like it, they don't like you.
Mm-hmm.
You've taken a bit of the inside of you and put it in front of them and said, "Well,
Right.
what do you think about this?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, fuck that." And you're like, "Oh damn, I must be a terrible person." And so there's this
Mm.
constant, this feeling of I, I can't possibly be doing this, or they can't possibly
Mm.
be interested in this.
Right.
And obviously, you do the same thing. You record yourself as a
Yes.
comedian. It's how you
Yes.
get better. And it's this terrible thing that we do to ourselves that
Uh-huh.
every single time I do a performance, I come back home and I play the
Mm-hmm.
tape and I watch myself and you're just like, God, my nose is so big and my teeth are so bad. And oh, I look like such an idiot when I smile. And oh my
Mm-hmm.
God, that joke was, why did you say it like that? Obviously we
Mm-hmm.
should have done this. And you just sit and I'll go up and I'll do 15 minutes comedy and then I will come home and just watch it 3 times and hate myself for an hour,
Wow.
and I don't know why people do this to themselves. I really don't. It's a
It's well,
terrible thing to do to a human.
it's very, very interesting. And well, I mean, I'll say one thing, like, from my perspective, you are one of those amazing comedians who we see at the Tokyo Comedy Bar. So just, like from the outside, I think, well, and so often is the case, the majority of people are internally, very, very self-critical. And that's one of the amazing things actually about podcasts. And for example, I'm a huge fan of Pete Holmes' You Made It Weird. And I think from the outside, you can look at him and see him as an extraordinarily successful comedian who had his own chat show and had his own TV show on HBO. But what the podcast reveals, as he talks to lots of different people, is about the sort of agonizing self-doubt that he has had
Oh yeah.
all the way through. So I think what you're describing there is very common. I hate to out myself, and that listeners of the podcast will not be surprised. I have slightly different relationship with the recording aspect in that I absolutely love watching myself back. It's one of the highlights of
Good
every.
God, really?
Yeah, yeah, it is. I mean, I'm not unique. There are one or two other comedians that I have met who are in a similar situation. I mean, we've talked at length on the podcast before about how I don't think it's pure. I'm not like in. I don't think I'm the most attractive or indeed the funniest person in the world. But there's something I find fascinating about watching myself back. I mean, also to connect with the you were saying about you're sort of surprised that others would be interested to hear you talk. I've kind of always been desperately wanting people to hear me talk. And that question of whether I should be talking or whether others would be interested, it's not like I think I should be listened to. I mean, at least I've got several podcasts and I sit on stage a lot, but I don't think rationally, I don't think, oh, I am any more or less interesting than anybody else. I'm sort of fascinating to myself in and of myself. Like it's a weird thing to have a personality and to understand bits about it. I find myself more interested in aspects of myself than I am necessarily in an aspect of an arbitrary another person but I don't know. But and he said I'm almost losing the thread here. Like I don't have any of that. Like when I watch myself back and let's say that there's a joke that hasn't gone well, I feel just a kind of a deep frustration that I'm not being funny enough. But I never question, should I be trying to do this? It's kind of
See,
like that.
I'm the exact opposite. I can remember very vividly. It's just a week ago. I was on stage and we had a
Mm,
pretty full. The Tokyo Comedy Bar is not a big place. We get
mm,
50 people. That place is pretty full,
yeah, yeah.
and we had like 45 people in there. And I came out on stage and I looked out at them and I just had this like crushing. Why are you here? Just
Oh,
not
really?
me, but the 45 people. Like I
Really?
just looked out at them and I'm like, really, this is what you chose to do with your, I guess it was
Mm,
a Thursday night, a Friday night. It
sure,
was a Friday
sure.
night. I can't believe the 45 of you with all you're in Tokyo, the biggest, one of the most interesting cities on earth. And what you have chosen to do is spend the next 15 minutes
Hmm.
listening to my bullshit. Like it was,
Hmm.
and I just looked at them like, what's wrong with you people? You must have something better to do with your time than listen to me. And like I have to jump over that hurdle as the first step of my act. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
Chris, you have to get past that feeling of why are they and they have the it's like all of these little birds that are waiting to have worms put in their mouth. They're just
Right,
like,
right.
feed us the comedy, Chris. And you're just like, really? Me? You couldn't find better? It's and it's every single time I set foot on stage, that is my first emotion, and I just
Wow.
have to like power through it.
Well, I mean, and in some ways, I think it's a wonderful humility, and it also, I mean, it only kind of adds to the greatness of what you do. That's a step that you have to overcome. Yeah, and I think, and I suspect it is. Well, it sounds like quite intense for you. I think, because every comedian is different, aren't they? And the different ways in which they struggle about those things. But I guess that sort of kind of negative internal self-talk is something that a lot of people wrestle with. Is that something that you experience like separately from comedy, or you were saying it's like particularly for comedy that sort of perhaps negative self-talk is more to the fore?
It's in my normal life, I am a game developer.
Hmm,
That's what I do for a living,
right.
and I've been making games for a really long time.
Mm, mm,
I started making games back in the 1990s,
mm.
and in that part of my life, I've gotten over it. At this point,
Okay.
I know I'm a pretty good game developer, right?
Right.
And at this point, I can play a game and I can look at what I'm doing and I can be like, yeah, that's good, And
Mm,
if they don't like this, that's their fault because I know this is a good game. With comedy, I have, and I think this is true for every comedian. I have a very specific viewpoint on the world.
mm,
And for
mm,
me, comedy is like, I have this way of looking at this world, and I would like you to see the world the way I see it for a few minutes. That's
mm,
that's the heart of what I'm trying to
mm,
do.
mm, mm, mm.
I have a big long bit about I don't understand blowjobs, which I don't. It's in fact, I'm just like that is a very strange thing for human beings to do to
Really?
each other.
I just to know, I'm a huge fan, but do carry on. Do carry on.
And I don't say I don't like them. It's a weird thing when you
Oh,
look
well,
at it,
definitely. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
and
Go on.
and I I just like I want to express that because I don't feel that most people just sort of take it for
Uh-huh.
everybody just thinks blowjobs are great, but I'm like, really, you're just gonna put that in your mouth and
Man.
wow, that's a strange thing for humans to do. And for me, it's just the idea of like I have this thought in my head. I want to take it out of my head and
Sure.
stick it in your head for a second,
Mm,
and unlike my games, which I know it's good, I don't know that what's going on in my head is good. Like in
mm,
fact, I'm
mm,
worried that maybe it's not. Like I'm gonna take this thing out of my head to stick it in yours, and you're gonna be like, well, of course blowjobs are good, Chris. What are you stupid?
mm.
Like and it's a very like I say, for me, it's a very different place than
Sure.
other things in my world. It's very very much comedy, and I don't know that I will ever get to the place where I just walk out on stage and I'm like, I know I'm funny. Fuck you. Like I just
Mm,
not.
mm.
And it's weird because I work with other comedians and other people have different ways of approaching this. And I
Sure.
don't want to name names, but they're comedians I know that know they're funny, and they are. I'm not saying they're not,
Hmm,
right?
hmm.
But they are funny. They know they're funny. They'll come out on stage. They'll do their thing, and if they don't get the result that they want, they
Right.
get off stage and they're like, well, that audience sucked.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I almost never have that. There's a couple times where you walk out and you're like, okay, that audience did actually suck. There's
Mm,
a couple times that you're just like, those
mm,
people were not up for comedy tonight.
hmm,
But most of the time, 99% of the time, when I go on stage and I don't do as well as I want to do, I
mm,
get off stage and just hate myself. Just like, God,
mm,
those
mm,
people took time out of their day to come here and watch your bullshit, and you didn't make them laugh. What's
mm.
wrong with you, man? Where I've seen other people get off stage and they're like, yeah, that audience sucks. And I can't get myself in that mental space. I just feel like there must have been, they bought a comedy ticket. They came to a comedy club. They must have wanted to laugh. And
Mm,
I failed to give them that thing. And that's a
mm.
that's a terrible feeling for me. I
Yeah,
know
no,
there's
that.
other comedians listening to this podcast, so they'll be like, "Oh, yeah, God, that's a worse feeling." I don't know a worse feeling than walking off stage. And the worst is you've got your comedian friends like
Yeah,
standing on the
ha,
side of
ha,
the
ha.
stage,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you just went out and you ate shit for a few minutes, and you're walking off stage, and they're looking right at you as you're coming off stage, and you're just like shaking your head, and what are they gonna do? They know you just suck dick. You know you just like, and they kind of give you that half-hearted,
Right, right. Fist
attaboy
bump.
fist bump, and
Yep.
it's the worst. It's hard to. There's no emotional feeling I can say that's much worse than that.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's definitely. I mean, the experience of bombing and doing badly. I mean, I think for me particularly, if you go to one of these gong shows and so on, and you get, the audience is. It's not just that you did badly, but the audience said, look, we've had enough. You get off now. It's extremely painful. I mean, I do also find it when those things happen. I do find it very creatively productive. Like my brain kind of goes into overdrive overnight the next day. I do a lot of writing. I mean, it's interesting. I think that the attitude that for some people that if they like if they don't get the response they're looking for, that it's the audience's fault is a useful defense mechanism. I think it's. I like to think that there's a middle ground, which says that comedy is it's. I don't think that there are people who are like fundamentally funny and will always make everybody laugh, right? Because it's the same thing. Like it's like there's no person who plays music that is universally loved. Do you know what I mean? Everybody
No,
has
that's true. That's true.
there's different preferences and so on. I think there are people who are, incredibly quick-witted, who've got so much experience, and they can walk into almost any room, and it's like, however difficult the situation, there are people who 99 times out of 100 will, in a sort of almost like magical way, produce comedy out of the air, and then we are, you mentioned several like Doug Stanhope and Bill Burr and Carl Kinane, who are all, they're magicians,
But here's the thing, and this is
yeah,
this is what I've learned getting to the nuts and bolts of comedy, right?
yeah,
There are some amazing comedians at Toad Comedy Bar that do this, right?
yes,
Evans Musoka, perfect example, right?
hmm
Very, very funny man.
yes,
And he'll walk out, and what you'll watch is you'll see he's doing some comedy, and
mm,
then he gets that like this audience doesn't like this topic or they don't
right,
like this thing.
yeah,
But you
yeah,
know what? He's got all this other material in his
oh
back
yeah,
pocket,
right,
right?
right,
And he'll reach in his back pocket and pull out something different and be like, "Well, how about this? Is
yeah, yeah,
this what you're into?"
hmm
And he's got and he's just one example. This is all
sure,
good comedians, right?
sure,
And
sure,
he's a particularly good comedian.
mm.
When you watch these comedians come up and they just have this giant catalog of material
Oh, sure.
that they can pull out when they need, and and the intelligence to be halfway through a bit and be
Mm,
like, this is not. Nope. I remember once. I remember as vividly as it was yesterday.
mm,
I had this whole bit about why the Bible is ridiculous and it was a big bit that had a lot of religious stuff in it.
sure,
And
sure.
I was doing this. It was a very small audience. I think there were like 8 people in the audience that night,
Okay,
which
yeah,
happens sometimes.
sure, 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 sure.
And 6 of those people were a large Mormon family, all sitting at the same table,
Okay,
and they were just not up for what I was dishing out. And this was very, very early. This was like, well, I'd only been doing comedy like 2 months, and
sure.
I didn't have anything else. Like
No, no, no.
that's what I had memorized and prepared for tonight,
Yeah,
and I had to just sit up there, and it was like driving nails into my eyeballs. Just I'm gonna
sure.
do another 4 minutes of why the Bible doesn't make sense to the, and they just sat with their arms
Yeah, yeah.
crossed, shaking their head in judgment. What
Mm,
are you? And it would that was the day that I realized, dude, you gotta have a backup plan when
right.
you get up on stage. Not one, you gotta have multiple backup
Mm-hmm.
plans where if
Mm-hmm.
you're doing this bit and they're not into dick jokes, okay, you're not gonna do dick jokes. If you're doing religious stuff and
Mm, mm,
it and when you watch those really great comedians, and this is what makes live comedy so great, it's not a recording,
right,
right? It's not like you get up and you press play and the comedian does his bit. it's
right.
not it's not like going to the theater and seeing live theater where there's a script and they go through the script.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's this interaction between the comedian and the audience, and the comedian said this audience is not up for. And I think the hack version of this, of course, is crowd work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is the big debate in the comedy world right
Mm,
now: is how much crowd work should we be doing and all that.
mm,
And I think one of the things people miss in that debate is the crowd work just, me taking a census of the room and, oh, you're from Ohio. What's
mm.
Ohio like? All right, that gets pretty boring. But if it's I need to figure out who the hell you people are so
Right,
I
right.
know which one of my bits of comedy to do for you.
Mm,
Then it
mm,
becomes very beautiful, right? And it
mm-hmm.
becomes oh, I
Mm-hmm.
found out this thing. Oh, you guys are from Texas? Let me pull my back pocket. I got some Texas
Yep,
jokes.
yep, yep, yep.
Oh, you guys are tourists. I got some stuff that tourists love to hear. And
Right.
so you're watching somebody, it's like watching a chef make a bespoke meal,
Right.
like,
Right.
oh, what is it in Japan? The omakase everybody loves, right?
Yes. Yes.
I've figured out who you are, and now I'm going to give you the comedy you want.
Mm,
That level of crowd work is beautiful to watch.
absolutely.
I think that's what people miss in the debate is that was the old purpose of crowd work. I need to
Mm,
figure out who you are so I can deliver you something that's going to be interesting to you,
mm,
as opposed to I'm going to get up and just ask everybody stupid questions for 30 minutes so that I can find the two
hmm.
minutes that's going to look good on my Insta reel,
Right. 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 Right.
which is what a lot of it seems to be now, actually.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I think I mean, the multiple backup plans. I mean, no, it is a beautiful thing to see that, like omakase, like the stuff that's drawn out. I mean, slightly in defense of theatre, which I did for some time, is I think you're absolutely right that it can't. Oh, we've lost Chris there. Oh no. And we're back. Chris is back. Yes, internet chaos. As I was saying, I think yes, the comedy gods were just incensed at me trying to defend theatre. I always remember one of the things about theatre was that I think in the best theatre, although there is a script, the audience is there and they can react to what's happening on stage. And I used to say this when I was involved in the theatre. I think the best theatre is there is a sort of symbiotic relationship where as something dramatic happens in the play, the audience goes, and that
Yeah, yeah.
sort of inspires the performers, the actors to step up a gear, and
Mhm.
which was what I always enjoyed about theatre. But I think you're absolutely. I think stand-up's on another level, right? Where not only can the audience react, they can laugh, they can gasp, they can groan, they're all different sort of sounds. As you say, the brilliant comedians who've got that material and that ease with which they can move between can then pull out completely new gears, which is amazing. Slightly in defense of crowd work, if you're familiar with Moshi Kasha has got like a crowd work album. And I think I agree with you. Like sometimes the crowd work can get a bit tiring if it's just right. We're going to do a census of the people in the room. But I think there are also, people who are kind of pushing the boundary of what crowd work can be to sort of, they're just playing in that space of ideas and finding the interesting people in the crowd. And like, I think Ross Noble in the UK.
Well,
But these are rarities,
I
shall we say?
think there's something happening right now, and like any kind of art form, we go through stages where people do things and audiences respond, and then we respond to that, and the art form evolves. And I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
stand up is in a very evolutionary stage right now, because of if we go back in time, the
Mm.
classics of comedy, the Richard Pryors and I don't know, people who
The
did
Bill Hicks
comedy,
and so on. Yeah,
yeah, Billy Connolly's, those folks.
yeah.
Um, they didn't. I mean, the internet kind of existed for some of their
Hmm.
careers, but
Hmm.
not in the way that the internet is omnipresent in comedy now today,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it's you can't talk about stand-up comedy without talking about TikTok and Instagram and how these things are involved. And obviously, there is this enormous pressure for all comedians, and there always has been, to
Mm.
be a comedian that brings an audience to a theater, right?
Sure.
And for people who don't do comedy, this is sort of the big difference between comedians is, are you a guy who's pretty funny that you can get put on a show and the show
Hmm.
will be good? Or are you a person that's going to bring an audience to a
Sure.
theater? Right. Those are basically the two kinds of real comedians in the world.
Yeah.
And I obviously belong to the first group. Very few people show up to a theater to see me perform. Nobody's like, oh my
Hmm.
God, Chris Natsuume's on tonight. I have to be there. Right. But I can get on stage and be funny. And
Hmm.
so I'm a comedian, but I'm not the kind of comedian that a Bill Burr or someone like
You're
that
not.
is,
You're not a
that people.
draw. You can't.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You're not
exactly.
yet. Not yet.
And,
It's early
and
days. Early days. Go on.
so the pressure to be a draw has always been there.
Sure.
But now you have this tool that you didn't have before, which
Hmm.
is Instagram and social media and all of that. And
Yes.
oh, you can do cute little videos, or you can do oh, look, this is me going on my vacation, or
Hmm.
you see I follow oh, what's her name, Taylor, I
Taylor
forgot her
Swift.
last name. Hip, not Taylor Swift, the comedian.
Oh,
Uh,
I don't know Taylor Dane. That's probably completely wrong. No. I
no,
don't.
God, I can't
What?
believe I can't remember. She's
Is
like
she,
the most famous female comedian of all time right now.
oh,
Um,
in America, is she really big? Is she?
yeah, yeah. Any case, she's just posting pictures of like her vacation. and
Right,
people are
right,
like, "Oh
right.
my God, she's on vacation." And they used not that wasn't a thing back in the day, right? That
Mm,
nobody used to look at Richard Pryor's vacation snaps. That
right,
wasn't a
right.
thing.
Indeed,
And
indeed.
so now there's this constant pressure to sort of expose yourself online and be somebody that people are interested in online.
Sure.
And crowd work is part of this, right? Because
Hmm.
there's this giant like mouth of the internet that has to be fed content.
Hmm.
And you can't constantly feed it your act because you just don't write that fast. You don't have
Mm,
enough comedy to
mm,
constantly be having new stuff every week unless you're, amazing. And so crowd work is sort of one solution to that. I can,
hmm.
because the crowd's kind of funny sometimes and funny
Sure.
stuff happens sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and while this is, I think some people are down on it, what I think it has really exposed is the difference between a comedy club and a comedy show, right?
Okay.
Again, when people in think about comedians, they think about I saw the Netflix special of Bill Burr,
Right.
right? And there's not a lot of crowd work in Bill Burr's Netflix special, right? It would be
Hmm.
hard to do. He's got an entire stadium that he's
Hmm.
talking to. Who's he going to
Right,
talk to, right?
right.
Um, Whereas you go see a show at the Tokyo Comedy Bar, there's only 30 people in the room.
Mm,
And so now you've got this very direct communication between a comedian and the audience. They're talking to each other. The show that happens on Thursday is going to be radically different than
right.
Friday,
Hmm.
even though the same comedian is there with the same material that he's planning on doing. It's
Mm,
going to evolve very differently through this crowd interaction.
yeah.
And I think the social media has sort of exposed that part of it. And so now that part of it is becoming
Hmm.
interesting. And so I think, like you say, there are people who are doing great crowd work right now. And it's very interesting to see people who do it well.
Mm,
I see it again. I keep talking about Evans. He's one of the comedians I really love at the Tokyo Comedy Bar.
mm, mm, mm.
Watching him do crowd work, you had Jay Yamaki on this show
We did,
just the
yeah,
other
yeah.
day.
Yes.
And he does amazing crowd work. And
Yeah.
watching him get up and just work and interact, this is something that you only get in a comedy club. You
Right.
can't do that on a huge stage in a big
No, no.
Netflix special. And so it's this very special brand of comedy that I think is fascinating and very interesting. And I think I wish more people would go to comedy clubs like the
Yes.
Tokyo Comedy Bar.
Indeed.
I
Please,
wish more
please,
people go to
please do
comedy
go.
clubs
Please do
and
go.
enjoy this.
Yeah. If you're in Tokyo, it's I mean, as you were saying, like you're asking why would people, in Tokyo, an amazing city. I think it is. Oh, but my own narrative in my head is that people come to Tokyo and it is an amazing and overwhelming city. And then there's
Mm.
occasionally they'll eat at McDonald's because they just need to like a little carb. And similarly, they'll come to a bit of
But it doesn't matter where you live, right? If
yeah.
you're in Tulsa, Oklahoma, they got a comedy club there, right? It
Oh,
doesn't matter
absolutely.
where you are. Wherever you live within an hour's drive, there is a comedy club,
Oh, yes.
and I think a lot of people who think they know comedy because they love comedy specials on Netflix,
Right.
they don't actually know the I don't want to say the real comedy, but they don't know this other huge part of comedy, which is comedy in a comedy club, and it's a good time,
Oh,
and you don't
absolutely.
have to go see the famous person that you saw, and just you don't even have to know who's there. You just show up
Right.
at
Right.
the Tacoma Comedy Club and see who's on in Tacoma. It's gonna be six funny people,
Mm,
and they're gonna have some funny stuff to see. And you could go to that same show 4 nights in a week, and it'll be different every night.
right.
It's
Right.
a it's an amazing art form in that sense. I've got bands I love. I
Mm,
don't think I could go see that same band every Friday for a month,
no.
but I could go to a comedy club every Friday for a month and be amused and be
Mm,
differently amused each time I do it. And I
yes.
know this because I'm in a comedy club every Friday. I mean, literally every Friday, I'm at a comedy club. I'm watching the same comedians do the same shit, but it's different every Friday because it's
Mm,
changing from the
mm,
audience, it's changing from the interaction, it's changing because you've got comedian A gets up after comedian B, and they're, oh gosh, comedian A talked about this stuff. I
hmm,
want to tell you about
hmm,
this stuff that I've got that goes with this stuff. I
mm,
mean, one of the things that I think people miss, and it's my favorite thing. So, of all the shows that I do, my favorite thing to do is I host the last train on Friday
hmm.
night.
Right. Right.
And it's sort of a hyped up open mic. It used to be an
Mm,
open mic, but we started putting on longer sets and
yes.
asking people to come in and do some more prepared material because it's a Friday night. You want to have the best show you can.
Sure.
And so it's this mashup. And the open mic part of it is the best part of it. And
Mm,
people are very down on open mics. They're like, oh,
mm,
the open mics got crap comedians on it, or yeah. No, it's amazing because you
mm,
get to watch people who in some cases have literally never done comedy before
mm,
get up and try to do this thing. And even when they fail, it's hilarious. And it's just it's a great time to watch, but you're also seeing good comedians do their material for the first time. Um, for me, what's fascinating is I'll watch, one of the better comedians at Tokyo Comedy Bar get up, and I've been watching Kat Randall, another amazing comedian.
mm,
I've been
mm.
watching her get up and work on this one piece of material for about 2 months now,
Right.
and I've gotten to watch this thing evolve from something that really wasn't very funny at all, to be quite
Mm,
honest.
mm.
You watched it and you were like, okay, that's got some funny stuff in it, but I don't
Yeah.
know to now it's
Yeah.
fucking hilarious, and I got to watch that process.
Hmm.
And if people are interested in comedy, people who are like, oh, I love Netflix specials and I love Dave Chappelle or whatever,
Mm,
fucking come see the nuts and bolts of it get built. It's fascinating
mm,
stuff. For me, it's the most interesting part, and for me it feels, I love hosting these things because it feels like I'm throwing this big party, and I got all these
hmm.
cool people at this party with me, and we're going to take turns getting up and just making this party rage harder. That's a completely different kind of comedy from the comedy that you would see if you were like, I love Jim Gaffigan and I
Right.
got tickets to a Jim Gaffigan show, right?
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
not putting that down. That's a good time. You should go do
Sure.
that too.
Sure.
But I think this other thing that happens in your little local comedy club, wherever you are,
Mm,
the open mic that's happening I did an open mic in Dallas at the
hmm.
Mad Hatter Bar. And it's
Hmm.
a little shit kicker bar in Fort Worth, Texas.
Hmm.
And you go in and half the people don't even know there's a comedy show happening,
Right. Right.
right?
Right.
They're just there because they got buck 50 well drinks, and they show up and there's some guy telling dick jokes in the corner,
Mm,
and it's just an amazing scene. And
mm,
for
mm.
me, and it sucks because you can't make a living as a comedian doing that
No. No.
shit.
No. No.
Which is sad because I think it's the best part of comedy.
Mm.
The we have an open mic at Titans Bar in it's near Ikebukuro. It's in
Oh
Otsuka,
yeah.
and I went to it the other week, and I got to be honest, two of those comedians were just they was like they're you were like, why are you doing this?
Right. 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 Right.
Please don't. And it was great because they got up and they had a great time, and people had
Mm,
a great time watching them.
hmm.
And this is a whole part of comedy that I wish people would get more into. And if I could
Yes.
sell anyone on comedy, it's not trying to sell somebody on you should listen to more Netflix specials. They
Right. Right.
get it's wherever you live. I don't care where you are. There's a comedy club near
Yes.
you that has a Tuesday night showcase with a couple comedians who are doing this as a part-time,
Right.
hobby or job. They got a real job during the day. And
Hmm.
some of them aren't that funny, but some of them really are funny.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
That's the bit of comedy that I wish more people would get involved with because that's the fascinating bit. For me anyway.
Yeah, amen. And of course, people who are in London, should get to Sunset Comedy. We have our Tuesday night showcase, and that's like what I spend a lot of my time trying to convince people because we've got a lot of people in Northwest London who I think are, getting back from work and they're, sitting in and they've got their food, Uber food delivery, and they've got their Netflix, which they will watch, but they've got, in a bar, just around the corner from, we've got tens of
Hell
thousands of
yeah,
people here
brother.
and they should come and see our show, which we keep on, every Tuesday, Sunset Comedy Club. Yeah, no, well, I mean, I think I'm absolutely
But I mean
with.
that
Go
thing
on,
you just
go on.
said, I want to reiterate that because it's important.
Yeah.
We spend so much time doing bullshit, right?
Mm, mm,
I
mm,
I was down in the Philippines, a video game conference, and I went to a video game lecture, uh, and in this lecture, they were talking about the Philippine government had done a research study and
mm.
found that the average human spends 4 to 6 hours every day
Yeah.
staring at their phones.
Right.
Four
Right.
to
Right.
six fucking hours, right? That's more than a part-time job, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And you could take a couple of those hours
Yes.
and go to your local bar and watch an open mic. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
you could, and in most places, open mics are free. Like,
yeah,
we
yeah.
have to pay for that shit, right? You
Absolutely.
go in, you buy a couple drinks, and watch Sandy from accounting get up and try to tell dick jokes. Why are you not doing that? That's
Indeed.
that's an
Indeed.
amazingly good time. And people don't, how many open mics have you been to that literally the entire audience is the other comedians from the open
Oh yeah,
mic?
there are many, and there are dozens of open mics every night in London, and many of them are like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, yeah, and you just wonder, like, this is free entertainment. It's such, and the obvious defense to that is, well, yeah, it's an open mic. Some of those comedians are going to suck. That's the awesome part. Like, that's the best part is watching Sandy from accounting fail. You're just like, wow, that hurt, Sandy. And it's amazing. There's so much fun to be had because Sandy's got a good sport about it. Sandy's going to
Right,
get up
right.
again next week and give it another go.
Hmm.
This amazing thing that's happening of humans interacting with other humans, and instead you're gonna sit at home and watch somebody varnish the deck on their boat on a TikTok video because it has interesting sounds. Like, what the fuck is wrong with us as a
Mm.
people? Like, that's not a. I actually did that this morning.
Oh yeah.
They have these ASMR videos, and
Oh
I
yeah.
was watching some, and it was literally just a piece of wood, and somebody had poured some sort of varnish remover on it, and was using a tool to remove the varnish.
Mm,
And
mm,
they had this microphone all turned up, so it was really loud. I spent 3 minutes of my day watching.
mm.
Why? Why the fuck are we doing this to ourselves when there's actual entertainment to be had? And
Yeah,
not
yeah.
just, and to be honest, not just comedy. How many bars have got, the local garage band playing,
Sure, right.
or there's so much. Yeah, the community college is doing their, production of Othello,
Right.
and it's gonna suck. It's a community college production, but it's gonna be better than what you're watching on your
Well,
fucking
it's
phone,
gonna be real,
asshole.
isn't it? It's gonna
Yeah,
be real with real people, in it, and it's gonna be in the moment. It's gonna be in the now.
it,
Yeah, yeah.
it's so weird to me how we as a people have chosen to spend our time and just allow. And it's all shit being sold to you on your
Mm,
phone, right? I mean,
mm.
it's every one of those shitty little TikTok videos comes from a place of trying to get you to watch an ad. I
Absolutely.
mean, the amount of time that we spend watching ads for shit that we don't want to see, or watching some brainless influencer. Look, I'm on a beach in Tahiti. Who gives a fuck that you're on a beach in Tahiti? I've Go see some real entertainment, and I
Yeah.
don't, or do some real shit. We used to do sport. One of the so I say I play in a band, right?
Mm.
Not a band. I actually have a friend who runs live gigs around
Oh yeah.
Tokyo. A guy named
Mm,
Andy. He's a cool dude. And
mm.
and it's an amazing setup where he's got like four studio musicians, and each one of these musicians will get up and play a song, and anyone in the audience who wants to replace one of those musicians, if they know the bit, they can get up and do it.
Oh
So,
wow.
like, we're gonna play this AC/DC song. If you know the guitar part, you can get up and
Right,
replace
right.
it. And it's a fucking good time. We do this all the time. And we're all old. I'm
Mm.
52 years old. I'm like the youngest dude there
Mm.
because nobody knows how to play guitar anymore. Nobody knows how to play drums anymore because learning how to play guitar or learning how to play drums requires you to focus down and practice and do that. And that took 3 or 4 hours a day for a couple
Yeah.
years. But you don't
Yep.
have that because you spent that watching TikTok videos.
Right, right.
And so we have generations of people who have never had the chance to get good at anything
Mm.
because we've stolen that. And I'm a game developer. I feel guilty as shit
Mm.
about this because I
Mm.
was part of the problem.
Mm.
They spent their lives just had their youth taken away from them watching TikTok dances instead of learning how to play guitar so that they could join a garage band to get stoned with their friends at
Right.
a fucking parking lot and have a good time. Like, none of I'm so sad for them that they
Mm.
don't have this
Mm.
in their lives. And comedy can give them some of that back. At least you can go watch people tell dick jokes in a dark
Yeah.
room. That's something.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Well, and I think it's I think you're skewering the one of the challenges of the modern world, and also it doesn't seem so strange to me in as much as it's sort of people following the path of least resistance. Like, I mean, I absolutely agree that I think all the people in Harrow should come and see our comedy club on a Tuesday night. You know, I think, and the same wherever you are in the world, you should be going out and like interacting with real people and experiencing things. What's happened with games and Netflix and TikTok and all these things is we've managed to create sort of like safe, sterilized versions of these that will give you
Yep.
like a little rush. But and I think a lot of the people, they will maybe not go to you know you know a open mic, whether it's music or it's comedy or what have you, because there's a kind of there's a fear, right? There's a fear
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
embarrassment. I mean, I think you and I agree absolutely. You should still go, and you know you'll get higher highs and lower lows as a result of being there in person. But I can absolutely see, I totally understand moment to moment when people are making these decisions to watch the TikTok video or turn on the next Netflix special. I can totally see, you know, because this, you know, humans moment to moment will generally follow the path of least resistance, and we've created these devices that are just so that they're just there. I mean, me personally, I very carefully do not watch any videos like almost at all, and unless somebody is saying like, "Oh, you must watch this one video because it's like you know,"
Mm.
relevant. But it takes. I mean, you know, I mean, I've started putting my stuff on TikTok, and I just you know, I've not been doing it while I've been out here in Japan, but you know, part of the process of putting my stuff on, I was sucked briefly back in to the TikTok world, and it took huge willpower. And I'm a
Yep.
person with a fair degree of willpower. Like I haven't drunk any caffeine or alcohol for 3 years. You know, it's like you know, I get plaudits from people sometimes about, oh, you've decided that you stick to it. But I find TikTok so addictive. It really requires every ounce of my willpower not to be like totally sucked into
Oh,
it.
I
It's
give you that
terrible.
great big diatribe, but I'll tell you the honest fact. I woke up this morning, I laid in bed, I rolled over, and yeah, I checked my Instagram, and
Mm.
boom, it was 30 minutes later. I don't
Right,
I and I could not tell you if you put a gun to my head and said, "What did you watch on Instagram this
right,
morning?"
right.
Tell me three videos you watched. Tell me three things you saw. I
Mm.
couldn't do it.
Yeah,
I honestly, I just remember the one with the boat and the varnish. That's it. The other, but there was 30 minutes of something, and
yeah,
that's 30 minutes that I didn't spend talking to my wife. That's 30 minutes
right.
I didn't spend calling my kids. That's 30 minutes I didn't spend working on my work or writing comedy or doing any of a thousand things that I could have done with that time.
Yeah.
And it to me, it's really the saddest part about all of this is um, to have experiences that really matter in your
Mm.
life, you're going to
Mm.
have to contribute to them.
Hmm.
I remember going out with my friends and having a good time. I remember going and climbing mountains. I remember going
Mm.
and playing music with my friends. But all of those things required me to be in good enough shape to climb a mountain. They required
Yeah.
me to learn how to play drums. And all of those things required some level of discipline on my part to get good at something so that I could appreciate the reward that comes at the end.
Mm.
And
Mm.
just like you say, that you can appreciate a TikTok video without putting anything into it other than pressing the play button.
Right.
And so you naturally fall into that rhythm.
Mm.
And we're going to get a lot of people who are going to be, you know, generations that are going to hit my age. They're going to hit 50. They're going to look back and they're going to say, what the did I do in my life?
Mm. Mm.
Where did all that time go? And I can tell you, and I think you're a similar age to me. You're
Yeah.
almost
Yeah.
50, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the big things about hitting 50 is you start realizing that your time is very limited.
Mm.
Um, my parents, I'm lucky enough to have a father who's still alive and I love him very much,
Mm.
but he's 80
Mm.
and 83 actually.
Right.
And there's shit that he used to love to water ski. He's 83. He's not water skiing anymore. I was
Mm.
cleaning out his garage last year and there's a bunch of
Right.
water
Right.
skis that'll never get used again, right? And
Mm.
you say, well, all right, how many more years do I have left to do that thing that I want to do?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. One of my hobbies is I go hiking in
Yeah.
the mountains.
Mm.
And that requires a certain level of physical, strength. And,
Yes. Yes.
maybe I can do that until I'm 70, best
Mm.
case scenario, right? 70, 75 at best, right?
Mm.
And the
Mm.
kind of mountains I can go up are going to get less and less at 70,
Sure.
right?
Sure. Sure.
So I got 18 years. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you say to yourself, okay, it's summer and I want to go hike this one mountain. Well, if I don't do it this year, I only have 17 more years, right?
Hmm.
It's like a number that you can get your head around
Yes. Yes.
of how many more summers do you have to do this?
Yes.
And it's one of I have teenage kids and I've tried so hard to express this to my son, you know, you right now have this incredible body that'll go do
Right.
whatever you want it to do. and you have all of this time in front of you, and you could fill it with so much amazing shit. You don't
Mm.
just have to lay around and watch anime and jack off. There's other
Right,
things
right,
you
right.
could do with your life.
Mm.
And but when you're 19 years old, there forever, you have forever left. You can't
No.
visualize the number of years you have. But at 50, you can
Oh yeah.
start, because it's not until you die, it's until you can't do the shit you want to do anymore. I mean,
Mm.
even comedy, right? Most people start comedy when they're in their 20s.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't
Mm-hmm.
set foot on stage till I was 50.
Mm-hmm.
And so people will say, it takes 10 years before you can be a real comedian.
They do say
Well,
that, yeah.
shit, I'm 63, but in 10 years, like who watches think real hard. How many 63-year-old comedians do you watch? Not a lot,
Well,
right?
well,
There's a
I mean,
couple, but not a lot.
there are very inspiring comedians in both their 60s and 70s on the in London that I see, and they're not necessarily people who are getting their own Netflix specials, but they're
Yeah.
I'm always inspired when I see people 10 and 20 years older than me still doing it and absolutely smashing it. It's I'm very much
But
happy with that. Yeah,
like I say, I haven't been doing it that long, but I've been doing it a lot. And one of the
yeah.
reasons I do it a lot is I feel this huge pressure of, if you're going to get good at this thing, Chris, you got to put the time in now,
Oh
because you
yeah.
don't. If I were in my 20s, I would have this. Oh, I've got forever in front
Mm,
of me. I
mm, mm,
I
mm.
don't need to go to the comedy club this week. I'll
Right,
do
right.
it next week.
Sure.
I feel like, every time the schedule comes out for the comedy club, if I'm not on it 3 times, I'm like, shit, where am I going to find somewhere else to get up on stage? Because
Yeah.
I don't have, I got to get good. You got to get
Yeah.
your reps
Yep.
in. You
Yep.
got to, you got to practice. It's an art. It's just like you got to practice your drums. You got to practice your comedy. And if you're not getting your reps in, if you're not, getting up on stage and trying out your new material and seeing that
Mm,
it
mm,
doesn't
mm.
work and rewriting it, it's an iterative process. And one of the hardest parts about comedy is, I can't practice this alone. You
Mm.
know,
Yes.
if I'm in a band, I can sit and practice this guitar solo until I've got it perfect. And
Right.
now I can go put it in front of somebody and say, look at my perfect guitar solo. Even in
Mm.
theater, you can at least rehearse your lines, and
Right. Right.
but with comedy, I think this joke's funny. I got to put it up in front of some people and see if it works.
Yeah.
And then okay, well, the first half of this was funny, but they didn't like this tag. I got to change that.
Yep.
And there's an iterative process of going to the mic and trying it and redoing it. And it's one of the few arts that I can think of that my practice requires an audience. Right?
Yes. Yes. It does seem to require the audience a lot more than other things. I mean, it's a weird one. I mean, it makes me think. Well, I mean, so and I do in the UK. I do a lot of virtual reality comedy. So basically,
Hmm.
I'm able to gig pretty much every night of the week and do like half hour, 40-minute shows by
Hmm.
like 3 nights of the week. I'm in a virtual reality thing, and there are people from all over the world, from the US and the UK and France and Denmark and what have you, all coming together. And that's I mean, I'm always looking for these kind of cheats. How can I, without having to travel across London, back and forth for 10 minutes or what have you, how can I get more stuff? I mean, I used before the VR. I mean, I used to stand up and practice, like just recording myself and then listening it back. And but again,
Yeah, I do
like,
that.
yeah, it's. I mean, that it's an interesting one. There's a double-edged sword there in that I've sort of stopped doing that now. In that, I think for me, this connects with what you were saying about evolving the material. Like I find it like, and I had like the first 2 years of open micing in London. I would find it quite painful to hear the same material over again from other comedians. And this is again, like, I'm a little bit weird out there on the spectrum or something, but it's like, for example, with like commercials, if I see this, I mean, I hate watching commercials, and if I see the
Mm.
same one twice or 3 times, it just drives me nuts. Like the and it's funny, like for me, like you were talking before about going and seeing a band, like I will listen to with certain frequency the same songs on repeat in the background, but it I find it very, very difficult to listen to, so for example, my favorite, like Patton Oswalt comedy special. I can't re-listen to that without at least a year or so having gone by. I find it
You see,
somehow
but here's the thing.
gone.
I'm with you almost, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm a favorite comedian in the world, Doug Stanhope, right? And
Mm.
I can once a month I can listen to every one of his specials, right?
Mm.
And I see new stuff in it. It's great stuff.
Mm.
But I get it. There's like I've heard this. You kind of run out of it. But the comedians that I work with
Yeah.
at the comedy club, one of the best things for me is to watch them do the same joke over and over. Like going
Mm,
to open mic and you hear somebody do the same joke at 5 open mics in a row. And a lot of people complain like, "Oh, I can't watch that." And they'll end up going and having a drink and not watching somebody
right.
because they say, "Oh,
Right.
I've seen that comedy before."
Yeah.
But for me, there's this incredible education to be had in watching them do the same joke and watching the audience and
Sure.
like, "Oh, look, that same joke done a
Mm,
little bit differently. That same joke with this line changed or this word changed. Look at how the
mm,
audience reacted to it." And to me, it's like a science experiment. It's this
sure.
incredible thing to watch. One of my favorite young comedians at the bar, a guy named Josh Adams,
Mm,
has this one bit of comedy about being a cop that is absolutely hilarious. And
mm,
I've seen it at this point 30 times, right?
mm, mm,
And
mm,
I've seen it kill, I've seen it bomb, I've seen it
mm.
everywhere in between.
Right.
And watching him and when he starts it, I'm my ears perk up. I'm like, I want to see how this goes
Mm,
today. And I'll
mm, mm.
watch oh, look, that doesn't work with this kind of audience. That doesn't work when the mood in the because that's you read the mood in the room, and the
Sure.
mood in the room is really rambunctious right now. I bet this bit's gonna work. Oh, it didn't? Why? And there's
Mm,
there's this
mm, mm,
incredible
mm.
science to it all that is
Sure.
fascinating for me to watch. And I always get confused because you know how it is. You go to the open mics and there's like two kinds of people that show. There's the people that show up for the open mic and they stay there for the whole thing and they watch the whole thing and they
Right.
get
Right.
involved. And then there's the people who are like, I'm going to get up and get my rep in. I'm going to get the fuck out of here.
Right. Right. Right.
Um, and the get the fuck out of here people, I feel like they're missing the best part of the whole thing
Sure. Yeah.
because there's this incredible meta show happening, right? There's the
Yes.
show that the audience is seeing, which is
Right. Right.
comedian doing comedy, and that's interesting. But
Mm.
there's a meta show of I wonder how this bit about the gator is going to work this week. And he
Right.
does the gator impersonation, and
Mm.
oh, it did work this week. And oh, look, that lady from Nigeria, she thought it was hilarious
Right. Right. Right.
because and that part of it to me is just fascinating. For me, the most
Mm.
interesting thing about comedy is figuring all of that out. And to think that you only figure that out about your comedy when you're doing stuff,
Right.
uh, that loses so much of the cool shit
Sure.
that's
Sure.
available to you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for me, I nothing I love more than watching the same comedian do the same shit 15 times. I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, no, and that seems to be a wonderful place to be in. Like, I think if you can be there and that you are like fascinated by that, that seems like a wonderful learning experience for you. And it seems like you're there also supporting the comedians. I mean, I'm a like rather than doing trying to have four open mics in a night, I which I've done in the past, but like in retrospect. I'm like, actually, I'd rather be at the same show for the whole night in order to like
Yep.
basically be reading the mood of the whole room and like the stuff that came up and the crowd work that the MC did and all this that, and I think if you do stay for the whole show you get a much bigger and rounder experience, and then if you're going on towards the end of the whole show you can incorporate those things into your
And I feel it when I
oh,
when I leave. I absolutely feel it. There's on Friday nights. I usually do a show in Shinjuku. Tokyo Combat does a show in Shinjuku,
mm,
but because I'm hosting the last train, I have to leave right after I do my bit and go across town and make it in
oh,
time for
okay,
my and afterwards, some of the other comedians from Shinjuku will show up to be on the last train later. And I'm
yeah,
always like, how did it go? What happened? Tell me
yeah,
about it. Because
right, right,
I feel like I missed out. I feel like there was a party happening back in Shinjuku
right,
and I
right,
had to leave the party early and I feel sad about it. I'm like, I couldn't be there for the rest of the
yeah,
party. I had this other party to get to. But,
mm-mm.
it, it's hard because I don't live in Tokyo. I actually live down in Yokohama, which is a
Oh, okay,
solid hour away on the train.
right,
And so, I it hurts because I'll stick around till 8 or 11 o'clock when the show is over, and then take the last train home, and I'll be
mm-mm.
home at like midnight 30 by the time I get to my door.
Sure,
And there's certainly a part of me that's like, you could have left earlier and gotten more sleep,
mm,
but
mm-mm.
I don't want to miss it.
No, absolutely.
There's this thing happening, and I don't want to leave the party early. So I don't know how long that'll last. Like I say, I'm still in my first, my glory years, I guess, but I don't see it dying anytime soon. I'm fascinated by the art of it all.
Yeah, no, well, and I mean, I think I am too. I mean, Yeah, but it almost. I mean, I think in terms of probably progressing, you're maybe in a better place than I am. I mean, part of the reason I was going in with the I don't practice my material anymore is as I mean, I've gone through different stages, like where I was doing a new 5 minutes every 2 weeks, versus then I had like 9 months where I did the same thing, every night, every night, every night, and saw that evolve, but then ultimately got sick of it, and partly because as well as the nights I was up performing, I was then practicing it separately, and so on, and so I kind of almost like in an attempt to keep myself fresh on stage, like I've got various bits of material that are now recurring. I try not to practice them unless I'm actually in front of an audience. Do you know what I mean? I mean, that's what we were
Yeah, yeah,
talking
yeah.
about before. Is the difficulty is that I guess ironically, I don't know. I mean, I tried to learn to play the guitar and never really got very far. I guess there's, you can. Is there the idea that you can, with the music, you can rely upon when you're listening to it, you can think, oh, that is definitely a duff note, and that's a good note. You can make sure that you're playing
Yeah.
it, accurately, and there's kind of like it must be in tune. So you're practicing the finger movements to get it in tune. There doesn't seem to be the same equivalent in comedy. And then there's practicing enunciation, and of course this is one of the things I'm terrible with. I speak too fast and I mumble, and I stop halfway through sentences and go off in different directions, which maybe I should be practicing those things. But yeah, it's I mean, this is, I think it's, yeah, this is something that I struggle with, in that the stuff that I do in VR. I do a lot of comedy in the vein of Ross Noble or Rory Scovel, where it's completely new every time, and I'm trying to, one of my comedy practices is writing completely new 10 jokes every day, and so I've sort of now replaced the practice of repeating the comedy, just
Mm.
saying it and then listening to it back, with just continually trying to generate new jokes and trying to sort of like break into a space where one can kind of be, effortlessly generate material, in real time. Of course, classical stand-up comedy is a lot about repeating the same joke 200, 1,000, 5,000 times, and getting it into this beautiful form where somehow it's like, it'll go down well with every audience. I'm still wrestling with what's the and well, I think what you're describing is, it sounds like a great part of your enthusiasm for hearing those jokes over again, not just your own but other people's and so on, comes through. And I think that's like, yes, you're going to do it. You'll be astride the world before in nobody's time. But I think there's also there is a danger of saying that comedy needs to be done a certain way. Wouldn't you agree?
No,
Like,
no, I think everybody's got their own way of doing it.
right.
For me, you talk about wanting to do, constantly new stuff, new stuff. For me, it's I want to, when I very first started, and I think this was not right. I had because I used to do theater back in high school. I used to
Oh
act in
yeah,
high school,
right. Me too.
and I had a very like I used to do these humorous interpretation competitions that they used to have down in Texas, where you would stand up and you would do like a 1 minute or a 3 minute monologue, and humorous monologue or dramatic
Oh,
monologue. I'm
cool.
going to do this scene from Shakespeare or whatever.
Hmm.
And I had that kind of idea that's what comedy was. I was going to get up on stage and I was going to do my bit, and they were going to
Okay.
laugh at my
Yeah.
bit,
Right.
and I did. I memorized it word for word, and I'm going to get up and I'm going to do exactly like I memorized it, and it doesn't matter what the and I very quickly realized that's not. I mean, maybe that's how some people do comedy. That's not
Mm.
what works for me,
Mm.
and I realized that what I needed was to have the material sort of as the bones,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And now I'm going to take these bones that I have and I'm going to flesh it out based on what's going on in the audience.
Sure. Yeah.
And I realized that instead of having these big 5 minute long stories, what I really needed was, 30-second bits. And I
Yes.
take these 30-second bits, I put these all together into, if I put these six in a row this way, that becomes
Mm.
this story. If I put them in a row this way, it becomes a slightly different story. But
Mm.
now I can do that reacting where, hey, this guy just got up on stage and did a bunch of material about blah. Hey, I got some stuff that it's not the
Yeah.
same material, but it responds to that. It responds to the mood in the room. I just saw that these people. I have a big long bit about the fact that my mother was bisexual,
Mm.
and every now and then we'll get somebody who gets up and they do a bunch of material, touching on gay issues, and the audience is into it. And I'm like,
Hmm.
hey, I can be part of this party. And it's very
Right.
much like when you're at a dinner conversation and somebody's talking about something,
Oh
and
yeah.
then you're like, oh, hey, the conversation is talking about vacations. I'll
Yes.
talk
Yes.
about vacations. And so if you have those little nuggets that you can put together
Yeah. Yeah.
and pile those on to what's happening in the room, or when you're doing a little bit of crowd work, hey, what do you love about Japan? You love the toilets? I got some material about toilets. I'll talk to you about toilets.
Mm.
Um, and that has worked so much better for me. And
Sure.
so now what I'm what I'm putting together is this sort of large library of things I can talk about.
Yes.
And now I'm going to see what the room wants to talk about those things. But I've always got in the back of my head, hey, if this is a relatively quiet room or if there's not
Mm,
really
mm,
any
mm.
other information, this is what I'll do. I'll
Yeah.
do them in this order. This is tonight's set list, and that's what I'll
Right.
do. But if I get halfway through it and there's something else happening, yeah, I can pivot and I can go to that. And this was a
Yeah.
hard lesson for me to learn. You know,
Mm,
I
mm.
didn't always do that, and there's people who are going to listen to this podcast and be like, Chris, I watched you fuck up when you couldn't do that. Yeah, I was there. So that was a hard lesson for me to learn. It's something I'm still getting better at.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a thing that people go through. Like many comedians, and we talk to many of them on this podcast. At the beginning, they are kind of on rails, and they can't really react to what's in the room. And then, I mean, I think this is the thing. You know, as you go on, by hook or by crook, you end up developing a wider range of material. And then at some point, you know, and I think like you were saying, you know, Evans Masoko is very good at it, and others, and you're, you know, I'm starting like I think that thing you're describing about having the bones, like. Yeah, very, very much so. Like I will have a set of bullet points of these are the things, but then I start to have like, you know, I think I'm not there yet in terms of it's very difficult for me to completely switch the script. But I've now got partly from you know having done you know hundreds of you know IMC you know every week, and so I've got like little nuggets of things that are related to my personality or bits and pieces that can be thrown in anywhere. And they're now becoming, like you say, they're like little things on my utility belt that will come out at any time. And I think probably where we're looking forward to that point where, you know, like where Evans is that you've got so much material. You've got such a, you know, you're like a Batman when in like an ultimate armored. There's so many things, and you can with just make without it seeming labored, you can just like, oh yes, and you're sort of doing this sort of symphony as you bring out the different things.
For the record, you should have him on this podcast. He's a
Oh
very
right,
funny gentleman.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Um,
it sounds like a good idea.
uh,
We will definitely try. Yeah,
but no,
go
the
on.
other thing I will say, and you just mentioned it a second ago, very early on when I was doing this, BJ, who's one of the founders of the
Yep.
Tokyo Comedy Bar, kind of pulled me aside. He said, "I want you to start hosting shows,"
Yeah.
and I was like, "Really now?" And he was like,
Mm,
"Yeah, yeah, you're ready." And I started hosting shows, and that was probably the fastest way to get good that I could possibly
mm,
think of.
yeah.
And he was very honest. He was like, "Yeah, this is the magic secret to getting good quick is
Mm,
hosting." And I didn't understand it at first, but I realized that it's all the stuff that we just talked about.
mm,
Being able to pivot from one thing to
right.
another, being able to work in the moment, being able to do that crowd work, being able to and also, and this is another lesson I had to learn, being able to realize now it's time to shut up and let the other comedians do their thing,
Right. Right.
right? I just had this comedian get up and kill. And the last thing I'm going to do is put a bunch of my shitty crowd work in right now. No, I'm going to get the next comedian up here as fast
Mm,
as I
mm,
humanly
mm.
can because the laughter's still going. Let's get this next guy up in this great energy.
Right. Right. Right.
Learning how to read the energy in a room and
Mm,
react to it,
mm.
learning how to put your sort of self aside a little bit for the good of the overall show.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of these lessons are just such huge lessons for a young comedian.
Yes.
I can't think of a faster way to get good at comedy than to host comedy shows.
Absolutely.
Um, it's for me, it's been transformative. And you know, it's I host at least one show a week, and I love doing it. I love every part of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and you know, talking about all of those little nuggets of comedy, there's
Mm,
a lot of opportunities in hosting a show to pull a couple of those little 30-second, 1 minute nuggets of comedy out
totally.
at the top of a first set, or you know, hey, somebody just got up and stunk up the stage pretty hard, and
Mm,
I'm not bringing another comic up into this nightmare. I'll
mm.
you know cheer up the audience a little bit first. There's some wonderful opportunities as a host to work on all those little nuggets of comedy. So, you know, for those people who are like, how do I'm kind of good, but how do I get really good fast? Host shows, you know, produce your own open mic, do something, but get in a hosting mode if you can. If anyone offers you the opportunity to do it, because I know some people don't look down on it. Some people are like, oh, I
Mm.
don't want to host shows. I want to feature. Hosting has a very valuable lesson to teach people. And it's been one of the greatest things in getting me, I don't want to say good, but getting me better quicker.
Yeah, no, well, amen to that. No, absolutely. I mean, I've had this a similar, it's a very, very similar experience. I mean, we're sort of running out of time. I guess I'm tempted to just go back to one thing that you mentioned earlier on, which is about the process of being a comedian and exposing yourself on stage. And this is like, these are my thoughts. This is, and there's this idea that you expose some aspect of yourself and it doesn't go down well, then the audience is kind of not liking you, and that's one of many people have talked about that aspect. I mean, there's, I think, particularly Stuart Goldsmith on the comedian podcast, and it's just I particularly link onto that because my own experience is that I don't get the sense. I don't know that I ever think about it in those terms. I'm almost like I don't really care if the people in the room like me or not. It's are they laughing or not? Like if they're not laughing, and absolutely, I mean that's like I say, when they're not laughing and you've kind of brought them something and they're not laughing, that's a horrible feeling. And if the gig hasn't gone, I mean, when gigs go well. And it's just like you feel on top of the moon, and then if it's gone mediumly, and it's a very painful feeling. But I'd never thought about it in those terms. Do you know what I mean? It's like, are they
Yeah.
liking me or not? Do you know what I mean? Because it's not like a sort of a personal. I don't know. Is that just a turn of
Well, I can tell you
phrase?
flat out, people don't like me.
Oh, really?
But no. So I don't know if you know this. There was a comedian from the States, Christoph, who came out and he did some
Hmm.
stupid little interview with me back in the day,
Oh, yeah.
where I talked about the gaijin seat, and I don't know, it's somewhere over 2 million views now.
Hmm.
People, it got very well watched.
Oh, cool.
And if you go read the comments, I'm not loved. And it's, oh, this guy looks like he smells bad. Oh, I hate this
Oh,
guy's voice. Oh, his nose is so big. I mean, it is. Oh, I've been in Japan forever and I've never had the gaijin seat experience. He's got what main character syndrome, blah, blah. It is, a
oh,
couple
wow.
thousand comments of just solid hate, right? I
Oh,
mean,
my
there's
goodness.
also, in my defense, like 80,000 likes. So there's
Right.
some people that liked
Yeah.
it, but
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
a good side. And I don't know why I'm still subscribed to it because every morning I wake up, I open up Instagram, and there's just here's the 5 hateful things somebody said to you today, Chris, and it's just
Wow.
boom every day. You smell bad. You look like, oh, I hate Americans. Obviously, nobody sits next to you because you obviously look like you smell bad. It's just blah, bleh.
Wow.
And I don't know why I watch it. I don't know. You would think by
Mm.
now I'd be like, I don't need that in my life, but no, it's like picking at a scab. I go look at it every morning,
Oh,
and
wow.
it's not that I care. Sure,
Mm.
you don't like me. I don't. Some stranger on the internet. I don't care if you
Mm.
like me or
Mm.
not.
Mm.
But what's interesting for me is it did get people engaged, right? People talked about it, and a whole bunch of people watched it, and I don't know,
Mm.
a couple thousand people shared it. I forget how many thousand, tens of thousands of people shared it.
Mm. Mm.
And so, like, all right, people found this interesting. So that's something, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
But I
they
don't.
say all publicity is good publicity. It's.
But I don't think my persona on stage is like I like that guy.
Mm.
I don't think that's what I'm going for.
Mm.
But I
Mm.
do think people watch me and they say, well, that was weird or interesting or fun.
Mm.
And
Mm.
all I care is that they feel like the time that they spent with me was useful to them. It was
Mm.
fun.
Mm. Mm.
And if they had a good time, I don't I don't care. I have a beautiful wife and two beautiful children and a
Mm.
good life. I don't fucking need you.
Right.
I
Right.
don't
Right.
need your love. I'm doing fine. All I care is that whatever I'm throwing out there into the universe is interesting and fun.
Yeah.
And if that's and where I'm sad is where that's not true.
Mm.
Where I get up on stage and they're like, "Why am I watching this?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What my time is wasted."
Mm.
And I don't want to waste anybody's time. If I can't amuse you for a few minutes, why am I doing this?
Mm. Mm.
You know?
Yeah, brilliant. It's amazing. I think we've actually covered a lot of the topics that we would usually sort of drive into with the questions. Questions thrown in the same way. That like, all right, we dived in. We were just talking the whole time. I really, really, really enjoyed it. Thanks for sharing so much of your perspective on comedy and all these different things. Just like a brilliant stand-up set. We didn't have to follow the script. We just allowed it to evolve.
That's probably the best. I never read the questions anyway.
No problem at all. But yeah, Chris, people, how, this is it's the segment of the show where we promote your stuff. What shows can people see you in? What's the best way to follow you and know when you're doing
Oh yeah, absolutely.
stuff?
I don't know when this podcast actually comes out, but we have very soon, September 11th, begins the Tokyo International Comedy Festival.
Brilliant.
You can certainly see me there. I'll be doing a 30-minute solo show.
Hmm.
As part of that, you can see the whole schedule at the Tokyo Comedy Bar website. I perform at other places, but honestly, most of my performances are at the Tokyo Comedy Bar
Mm,
in Shibuya.
mm,
You can find me there at least 2 or 3 times every week. If I'm not there, you can find other hilarious comedians there.
hmm.
I always tell people you're going to go to Shibuya anyway. You're going to go take a picture of that stupid fucking dog, and you're going to go
Hmm.
take a picture of that crosswalk, and then you're going to be in Shibuya going, what the fuck do we do now?
Right.
Well, within sight of both that dog and that crosswalk is the Tokyo Comedy Bar. You can walk over there any day of the week and see
Mm,
amazing comedians. I'm there usually 3 times a week.
mm.
You can find, if you want to know when I'm there, you can find me on the Instagram. I'm Nine Squirrels. You can also just look up Chris Natsuume, but I'm Nine Squirrels there. Yeah, that's where you can find me. Please come out and see some of my comedy. And if not me, come see any of the other great comedians at Tokyo Comedy. We have great people out there.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, thanks, Chris. Thanks, everyone. Remember, you can help support comedians on technology, people, and drugs by going to patreon.com/comedians on, where any level of support will help us to continue to produce this show. Don't think anyone's given us any support yet, so you could be the first. But in exchange for that, do follow us on Facebook. Comment on the episode on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and so on. And we look forward to being in your ears again soon. Last word to the guest, Chris Natsuume.
I'm very sorry we didn't talk about the drugs. I feel like on this podcast there should have been some drugs. Trust me, we could have gone there. I'm sorry we didn't talk about the drugs.